Hi. Today I'm going to think about depression and what is depression? How can I work out if I may have depression? So, depression is a low mood that lasts for 2 weeks or more. Um, and there are two key questions that GPs are taught to ask people if we're thinking about depression as a kind of screening thing. So, the first one is have you felt down, depressed, or hopeless in the last month? And the second one is have you found it difficult to be interested in doing things, or have you found that you don't enjoy doing things anymore? And they're key questions that can help us work out if it's worth pursuing that further. So they're good questions for you to think about for yourself. There are other things that we tend to see with depression. We tend to often find that people feel quite irritable, that it's hard to concentrate on things, hard to be motivated to do things. Sometimes sleep and appetite are affected, and it can get to the point where sometimes people feel that life isn't worth carrying on with, and they may even feel like harming themselves as a result of that. So it's really important. Depression is a big problem. Lots and lots of people with symptoms of depression. So it's important that we talk about it and that we think about it and recognise it. Now, when we're thinking about depression, one of the questions I often get asked is, well, why have I got depressed? What is it? And that's a good question. Lots of reasons why it can happen. I think one of the first things to recognise is that we're probably quite used in our culture now to thinking that we should feel happy all the time. I pick that up all the time, particularly when I've been working with students, which I've done for a number of years. And there's this almost media pressure or culture pressure to think I've got to enjoy everything, I've got to be happy all the time. And sad things happen in life. So there are going to be things that happen in our lives, things like bereavement, loss, things that are difficult, things that we have to push through, things that disappoint us. And in those situations, we're going to feel sad, and that's normal. And I think it's really important that we are able to be sad and we're able to grieve and we're able to walk through that process without feeling that we have to have a medical label or medication. Now, sometimes in those situations, depression follows and we need help. But actually, sometimes we just need a chat, or we need a supportive friend, or we need to be able to express the sadness and be okay with that, that sometimes sad things happen. So I think it's really important to remember that. Now, there can be lots of other reasons for depression. Physical things, purely physical things in the body. For example, if your thyroid gland isn't working properly and is underactive, you can feel depressed. Other hormonal things, medication can sometimes make you feel depressed. So there can be physical things. We know that if people are living with chronic illness of whatever sort, then they can be more likely to be depressed as a result of that. So those things can often go together. There are also a number of other things, so things that have happened. We often find that there are things, excuse me, that have happened in our background. So it may be that things happened in childhood where we didn't express emotion well, where there was trauma or abuse or difficulty and grief, loss, and we didn't process that well and we didn't express emotion. And so things are stuffed down and then they pop out at a later time. It can also be that we've developed really negative patterns of thinking about ourselves, about what we're like. And that can happen again for all sorts of reasons. And it becomes normal to us that we think about ourselves in a negative way, or we think about our world or options or possibilities in a negative way because it's been repetitive in our upbringing, and we've learnt these negative mindsets and negative ways. There can be many other things. There can be often a whole combination of things. So family things, sometimes members of the family have also been depressed, and we've, whether that's genetic or whether we've learnt ways of thinking and behaving because of that, we don't fully know. I think one of the important things when we're thinking about this is to have a broad picture view of what's going on for a person with depression. It may be really obvious that there's been an event and that's triggered it, but often it isn't. and often it's a combination of factors. And that's important when we're thinking about how to help, and how that person can help themselves as well, or friends can help, because we need to look at all the different aspects as a whole to be able to help that person or to help ourselves get really well. So, two things that I'd suggest for today. The first one is that the Black Dog videos they're on YouTube. They were endorsed by the World Health Organization, and if you just put Black Dog video, Black Dog depression in, it'll pop up. And they're really good. They're quite short, but they're really clear in terms of helping us understand depression and what might help. And the second thing that I'd suggest for today is thinking about your story again. So if you think that you're suffering with depression, that these things ring true for you, then think about your story. Think about all the things that I've said. Think about your physical health, your thinking, your emotional health. What has happened in the past? What were the triggers? When did the depression start? What might tie in with that? What might there be in the past that ties in with that, or that hasn't been processed well? And write it down. And then next session, I'm going to talk a little bit more about some of the things that can help.